Dive 610 on Tedran Wall in Saba. This was part of a weeks-long liveaboard on Explorer Ventures Caribbean Explorer 2 from May 2023, sailing between Saba and St. Kitts. This site was further out than the other ones we dived on Saba, and as such was a series of deep walls and sea pinnacles. Starting off with a common lionfish there on the reef, before we headed over the side. You can see the drop off below us there. There we have a yellowfin grouper swimming below me, and an Atlantic tang in the background. Passing over some tube coral. Then we swam over to the first of the pinnacles. As you can see, it drops away on either side of it, and we made our way from the top of pinnacle to the top of the next one, swimming over the blue in between. We had a maximum depth of about 30 meters on this dive, so you can see that the seabed was probably about the same again below us. Here is all the hard coral growth on the side of one of the walls. And then in the distance we had this Caribbean reef shark, which is nicely differentiated between the darker wall behind it. There it goes, swimming below us, disappearing into the blue, but it did make a reappearance later in the dive. Along some more of the wall here. A couple soapfishes in amongst the coral there. And there's a closer look at the soapfish. Far below us in the blue, there is the Caribbean reef shark again. It was swimming up and down the walls and made a couple passes underneath us, but kept its distance from us. As well as the shark, we had a green turtle. It would obviously come down from having a breath and was heading back to the reef there. We finished going across the pinnacles and got to the other side where we were on this reef wall. Here we have a red hide sitting on the coral. In a second you can see its eyes swivel to have a look at me. There it is. And here we have a tiny Pederson's cleaner shrimp there in macro, as well as a Bicolour Coney. Here's two Christmas tree worms unfurling out, which was quite lucky to catch in macro. As well as a star horseshoe worm. Again, this was in macro. Here in the sand, just retreating a bit there, but will come out again in a second, was a yellow-faced Pikeblenny. These dig themselves burrows and generally just stick their head out. Backed off for a second and came back, and it was a bit more exposed there. You can see its mouth and one of its eyes peering around. We have an arrow crab there, hiding underneath a coral. Tried to film these fan worms, but they disappeared. Got a shark in the far distance there, you can just make out its silhouette. Another cleaner shrimp. then we started to ascend at about 45 minutes into the dive, and we were greeted by the green turtle again, circling our liveaboard boat there.